All right, let's chat and review TheAge's new website update. So I'm here with Angus Campbell.
G'day viewers at home.
You want to introduce yourself, Angus?
Yep, so my name's Angus. I'm a UX designer and part-time bike rider and full-time golf professional.
So you're a UX designer and
UX
golf
designer
professional.
and golf professional. No, just a UX designer and someone who enjoys a bit of golf.
So recently, TheAge, which is a pretty significant newspaper publisher here in
Victoria.
Australia,
Yep.
they have just uplifted their entire website and did a big redesign, a big refresh. So we're just going to basically do a quick heuristic overview of what we think is working, what we think maybe we would question. Do you want to lead the charge on this one?
Yeah, so as Kelly was saying, we're conducting a live heuristic evaluation on this site. We should preface it by saying that there's no strict way that you can run a heuristic evaluation. It's often said that UX is not a science. That's true. And you can chop and change a lot of activities as you want. So we're just going to run through the 10 heuristics for user interface design as made popular by Jacob Nielsen and use those just to talk as mainly a talking point. And we'll probably look to analyse a couple of key flows that users might typically experience on the site and bring them up as we go. I think
Cool.
That's probably best.
So, look, I mean, obviously one of the main goals of coming to a newspaper or journalist kind of website would be to read an article, right? So, look, that's horrifying. Let's not go to that one. Let's jump into good old Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton.
I don't think you're going to find any good stories at the moment, to be honest.
No, there's probably not going to be a lot.
Let's
So-
go with this light-hearted comedy story.
Donald Trump polls improve in key states. So, first things first, I did notice that the article that we clicked on, if we jump back to the home here, the headline here is Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton are deadlocked. We click on this and we now get landed on a page which is Donald Trump polls improve in key states. So straight off the bat, that was slightly disorientating for me.
Yeah, a lot of one of the guiding principles in UX, or the unofficial guiding principle, is do as it says on the tin. So if I push a button that says something, take me to a page that essentially says that same thing. And sure, they haven't really done that here, but I wonder if that's got something to do with analytics or A/B testing or something of that nature, or even that the copy on the front page may have been optimized for some sort of desktop experience. But yeah, I'm sure there is logic behind that.
You're sure?
I would think so. I would think that's been done deliberately, yeah.
So another an unofficial guiding principle of UX design is to keep the user orientated. So as we can see here, I would assume that we have now drilled down into an article about the world. So yes, and then I'm assuming this is yes. So it seems to be like major topics or subcategories of the larger world category, and we are on race to win or race to the White House. And the breadcrumbs kind of back this up. So yes, we've gone from the home down into the world, and now we're in race to the White House.
It's interesting they've done that they've brought out those main three key themes, because I wouldn't typically associate that with something of a well-established media outlet to do, or particularly on their old site. I know a lot of the more newer age and trendier news outlets such as Vice Media do a lot of that content aggregation in sort of themes or buckets, and it's interesting to see that they've followed tact here.
Yeah, I personally do find it a bit strange that they have chosen these three subcategories out of all of the things happening in the world. These seem like very specific subcategories. I mean, especially search for MH370.
Yeah, it is quite strange actually, considering that there's a lot of other issues going on at the moment. But where do you draw the line?
Cool. So if we notice up here in the navigation bar, we have a bunch of categories, and at the end of this navigation bar we have this little three dots, which when you hover turns into an arrow, which that kind of suggests maybe we should click it, maybe it will do something, maybe it will move something or take us somewhere. When you do click that, as you can see, some categories or additional hidden categories appear, and we press this to go back to where we were. Now I find that interesting because another unofficial guiding principle of UX design is consistency. So we have 3 dots up there which basically show some hidden content, yet down here in the article we have a more button which shows more content.
Yeah, and I know we've talked a lot about unofficial guiding principles, but you're actually right that is an unofficial guiding principle of consistency and standards.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest things that we were just chatting about before we hit record was aesthetic and minimalism in design. So a lot of what we would have seen a couple of years ago with news sites is when you jump to an article page, they go for the shotgun approach and hope that something sticks on the page. So while there is an article on the page, they've traditionally treated it as the less important thing. Whereas here, as we scroll down the page, it's pretty clear that what they want you to do here is read the article or consume the surrounding content. There's a lot of white space. And I read somewhere a statistic that white spacing can increase comprehension by about 30% or something like that. So it does actually help. And they've cottoned onto that fact and are abiding by that principle, which is awesome.
Absolutely. Another key principle we were chatting about just before was this kind of match between the system and the real world. And we, as you all know, newspapers have taken this huge journey into the digital world, and digital spaces themselves have kind of evolved over time from that full-on skeuomorphic kind of design where they're mimicking real life almost identically to this kind of metaphorical, minimalist approach where there's kind of these key things which pay respect back to their historic or their history. One thing that pops out here is the typefaces that they've actually used. So the article itself is written in a serif typeface, which is, I would say, uncommon, slightly in web standards.
Yeah, again, another stat I've read is that people actually find it easier to read sans serif fonts on the web.
Oh, that's interesting that they chose. So that's funny, right? Like, obviously the designers at Fairfax Media know that, or would know that, and they have decided, our heritage in printed news, in newsprint, in physical newsprint is so important that we will hold on to that.
Yeah, I don't know how correct that statistic is.
I've read something similar. I have. Not that means it's any more valuable or valid.
So 100% of people in this room have read that stat, therefore it is important. But on that topic just before of less is more, traditionally a lot of these types of sites, as we were saying, would have cluttered with advertisements. Whereas now, when there is a single advertisement on this page or on what we're viewing right now over here, it is a lot more prominent, and a lot more people are going to look at it. So it's a lot more effective. But also, it's saying that the primary reason we're here is to read content and watch videos and consume what this story has to offer. It's interesting though that they've put the video a little bit down the page. Traditionally, I think they would have put it at the top of the page, but now they're starting to, I guess, entice you into the article and get you reading, and then offer the video as sort of a secondary experience.
Yeah, and like even this kind of video component is interesting to me. I find that a lot of newspapers or journalist outlets do this, where you look at the video that was Donald Trump playing, which is obviously related to the article. Up next is MH17 victim's son, then bear freed from car. I mean, they just get progressively more abstract as we kind of scroll through.
More abstract and more offensive. George Bush dances at a memorial.
I mean, that's just so offensive. It's
Cute
not even
animals
funny.
enjoy icy treats. I mean, you could almost have a sentence thing for this: noun, verb, pronoun. Butterfly greets famous person.
Yeah. Cool. So yeah, I mean, that's just a weird, like, obviously they want to drive traffic through to their videos, and that's how they've chosen to do it.
It is interesting though that just if you scroll back down, we've got 3 Facebook buttons, 3 Twitter buttons, taking up a lot of room on that page. That's probably overkill.
Yeah, and again, that comes back to that aesthetic and minimalist design, where that quite obtrusive kind of buttons, they're very bright, they're very prominent, they're very sharp. Cool, so look, we've got these categories here, so let's jump into the first one. So I find it weird that home is not news. I would have
Are
thought they would
are
be
the same
synonymous.
thing? What do you think?
In my mind, I say, well, we're on a news website, so obviously we want to see news. I would have thought that it would be synonymous, but let's have a look. So no. So now we're in news.
Local news.
Okay, so it is local news. That's right. So again, we have more categories of types of news, or is that all related to Victoria? Wow. So now we have 2 levels of categories, which are completely unrelated to one another. And this isn't even like, we thought it was local at first. We thought it was like, this is the environment in Victoria, I would have thought. But no, it's the world's environment. But you can only get there by going to news.
Yeah, and again, I mean, you might consider that these might belong under world news.
Yeah.
But
yeah, exactly. So world has these 3 very specific categories, whereas news has things like environment and health and education and investigations, which relate to the world. So
particularly with titles such as Whale Watch and UN Climate Conference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would assume the designers did card sorting on this stuff, so that's really interesting that this is the result of that card sorting, right?
Maybe, yeah.
All right, let's jump into AFL. And that is really disorientating to me, that we have sport highlighted in the header, and AFL is a subcategory, even though, how do I get back to it? AFL is still highlighted.
Yeah, or in the fact that we've gone in AFL and one of the subcategories in the AFL is the Rio Olympic Games, which one might think that Rio Olympics is not a football team of the AFL.
That is, yeah, so that was like, are we still in AFL? No. So if you click AFL, it takes you to sport, but also has AFL highlighted. If you then navigate away from AFL to something like football, soccer, then so now we're on orange sport.
Look, I would think this has been done although it does what we would perceive to break UX conventions, if you will. AFL is a hugely popular game in Victoria, and TheAge is arguably one of the most popular newspapers in Victoria. A lot of their traffic's going to come here for AFL related news, and they want to make that as prominent as possible. So therefore, they've elevated that that item, which was traditionally what we might call a subcategory, and they've stuck it as a main category.
Yeah, you're exactly right. So
it's a trade-off.
Look at this: soccer, football. Come on, consistency again. We have gone from red, which is racing, red, which is AFL, red, which was Rio Olympics, and football or soccer is the only one which is orange that I've found so far. Oh, cricket's green. Like, it's kind of all over the show. I find that personally a little bit disorientating.
Yeah, and also they were associating colours with primary categories at the top as well. And look, it doesn't really matter hugely at the end of the day, but it is what it is.
Cool. So overall thoughts, Angus, you go first.
Look, I'm pretty biased. I really like it. I come to this site every single day and read a lot of newspapers, and I go to a lot of other news sites, and I've had a lot worse experiences. So the fact that a massive corporation has got behind something like this, I think it's awesome. I really do. And it would have been, may have been a hard sell to get across the line, but yeah, I think it's certainly a step in the right direction.
I agree. I think I don't visit this site very often, but from what I've seen today, which is the first time that I've visited it, it is definitely one of the better looking, more legible, more clearly organized news outlets that I have seen. And to be honest, I might come here more often in the future. Awesome. Hope you listeners learned something today about UX design. Thanks for coming along, Angus.
No worries. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. All right. If you guys like today's video, hit that thumbs up. And if you want to see more of this content, then leave us a comment and hit that subscribe button. Thanks, and we'll see you guys next time.
See you next time. Bye.